Hey everybody, it's Mark Schultz here. Good morning and welcome to another edition of Recovery in Aviation. Good morning, Larry. How are you?
Hey Mark, good to be with you on this amazing July, mid-July day.
Yep, July
Thanks for
15th.
hosting us.
It's tax day, Larry.
It is tax day. I just did my taxes and sent them in 2
It
days ago.
is.
Hey Mark, I think we're having a few issues with the audio and
Larry,
the visual
where are you
here.
located today?
Yeah, hey Mark, I'm in Seattle, at my home in Seattle. Like I said, a beautiful day here today.
Yeah. Hey Larry. Well, I'm actually still in Minneapolis, and
Okay.
I took a flight here to get to Minneapolis, and I know that a lot of people have asked about
Right.
traveling and how things are going. So Larry, what are you seeing happening
Well,
out
I
there
think
today?
we're all kind of seeing,
in the industry.
things kind of stabilize a little bit. People are flying again. I think I saw over the 4th of July holiday, per day, that kind of week, 700,000 people, 750,000 people moving through TSA. So, that's up quite a bit. And everything you read in the headline news is airlines across the world are beginning to fly a lot more. Certainly domestically, the international thing is a little bit slower, but we're starting to see people be more comfortable with flying in more and more flights every day.
Yeah, I didn't have too much trouble getting out here when I came out here from Seattle. I flew Seattle to Minneapolis, and then I'm actually staying in a hotel right now, and so that was a new experience. I hadn't stayed in a hotel since March, as well. So, but to add on to that, Larry, I asked the desk clerk. I said, how's the occupancy here? And over the 4th of July weekend, they said the hotel. I'm in a Marriott property, and they said the hotel was about 70%. And right now, during the week, it was about 30%. So, things are still up and down, but there was some pretty good occupancies there, over the holiday weekend. There's no question about that.
No, it's like I said, Mark, I think people are getting more comfortable with all the measures that are being put in place and just all this pent up demand to start flying. Hey, Mark, one of the coolest things I heard this week is Etihad has just kind of implemented a check-in at home process where you can check in at home, but they will also send you a COVID test that you can take at home and send it in. So you can test yourself at home before you even book your flight, or as you're booking your flight and as you're printing out your boarding pass, you do a COVID test at home. And I just thought that was so innovative and kind of an interesting way. I'm not sure it's scalable, but really cool.
Yeah, wow, that's interesting. So, but the point is that everybody's having to do what's necessary in order to be able to make people feel safe and to be able to go out and start flying again. There's no question.
Yeah, crisis just breeds innovation. Hey, Mark, we're having a little trouble with your video and audio again. It's kind of you're frozen at this point. So, uh, hopefully, we'll get Mark. We'll get this worked out in just a second. Mark is
Any of you traveled, if any of you traveled before, internet connections are not always as stable as what we would really like them to be. So we're doing our very best to, to do this broadcast live.
Yeah, absolutely. Doing this live, we've had some times where it's been incredibly smooth, and other times like this morning that we have a few problems with our producer and getting things completely smooth and streaming through the internet. So hopefully we'll have that cleaned up in just a minute. We'll give Mark just a minute to figure out how to clean up the broadcast.
Hey, Larry, there you are with me.
Yeah. Hey, Mark.
All right. Okay. Well, we're having a little trouble with internet connections this morning, and that's what happens when you're on the road. So we'll just do the best that we can this morning. And I want to make sure that we, show the broadcast we have today, because we have some really super exciting technology that I want to share with you. And hang with us because we're going to have a guest here today that I'm going to bring on board right now. And it's actually the CEO of 3D printing technology company. And it's Ron Robinson. And I want to bring Ron on board with us here. Hello, Ron. How are you today?
Good morning. How you doing?
Doing very good. Hey, Ron, where are you joining us from today?
Hot Atlanta, Georgia, where it's going to be almost 100 degrees today.
Hot Atlanta. All right. Okay. Excellent. All right.
Wow.
Very good. And Ron, you are the CEO of 3D printer technology. Tell us, who is 3D printer technology and what do you do?
Yes, I'm president and CEO of 3D Printer Technology. We founded the company about 11 years ago. We focus on 3D printing. We sell 3D printers, and we provide services for aerospace and defense to quickly fabricate parts that they need, or they may have an obsolete part that they can't get because the supply chains have been cut. And we can also reverse engineer parts that they have that are obsolete, that they need to either get the plane back in the air from a tooling, jigs, and fixtures perspective. And we do this with using various types of metals and thermoplastic materials.
Yeah, and that's interesting. I didn't realize that technology has been in use for 11 years. That's quite a while. I mean, how's the technology maturing? What's happening right now with the technology?
It's been maturing over the last 6 years. Most airlines that we've met at the MRO shows are starting to implement their own 3D printing labs, and are also outsourcing some of the 3D printing to some of the major players here in the country, including ourselves.
So can you tell us a little bit about the technology and really what it is? Because I think some of our viewers out there would be really super interested in kind of knowing what you can really do with it, what some of the technology is.
Right. So you have two different versions of the technology. What you're seeing on the screen right now is a metal 3D printer, which actually can print real metal parts. Stainless steel, aluminum, titanium, Inconel, cobalt, chrome, and various other exotic materials like platinum, gold, and silver as well. And then you have a thermoplastic 3D printer that prints very high strength thermoplastics. But this technology right here uses a bed of metallic powder, and they're using 4 laser beams to actually fabricate a part within a build platform of maybe 16 by 18 by 12 inches. And the platform is dropping maybe 1 millimeter at a time, actually putting that part together. And you're going to actually, in the end, have a physical metal part that you can use. And companies like Boeing and Airbus are already using these technologies to actually make parts to actually fly the airplane.
Wow.
That is just really amazing technology. I honestly don't keep up with some of the 3D printing technology, and I didn't realize that it was so advanced at this time.
Yes, and again, a lot of the airlines and the aerospace companies right now are actually embracing this type of technology.
Yeah. Hey, Larry, both of us having been with Boeing, it's really interesting to see this kind of an advancement. I don't think I've seen, the OEMs actually doing 3D printing yet. And I guess I've heard that some of the engine manufacturers are and some things like that, right? I mean, at this time, aren't they, Ron?
Well, yeah,
Or
we were
Larry?
contacted by some folks at Pratt& Whitney to actually fabricate some lost wax castings for the turbine blades that they have to test, or that they're actually making. So they're starting to embrace and look at that technology as a means to bring products to market much faster and actually get airlines, aerospace parts to their customers a lot faster.
Yeah, and I think
Larry,
from my time
yeah.
at Boeing, they were absolutely starting to get into adaptive manufacturing or 3D printing, and for exactly the same reasons that Ron mentioned. There's some obsolete parts or parts that you just can't get anymore, and this is a great technology to be able to quickly and efficiently and economically efficiently produce those parts.
Right.
Yeah. Hey, Ron, things are pretty tough out there in the industry today, because of the economic downturn here earlier this year. I mean, how has that affected your business?
January, February was kind of rough because people are still trying to figure out what to do. Our customer here in Atlanta, Delta Airlines, a lot of people there were working from home. We've been doing business with United Airlines and Southwest as well, but a lot of people were at home trying to figure out whether they're going to be able to go back to work. So most people have been sending us work remotely. So it's as simple as they come up with either a drawing or a CAD design. They email that to us. We set up a Zoom meeting. We validate the part. We get permission from them to print the part based on what their requirements are and the material properties. And then we do a sample part for them. And if they're happy with that, then we make as many parts as required for that particular project.
Now, just a question is that I know in general I've seen that sometimes they'll be scanning parts and how does scanning a part or reverse engineering it, or how does all that kind of work? How does it all fit together?
As a matter of fact, we just got a call yesterday from one of our aerospace customers, TIG Hitco. They have a contract with Sikorsky Helicopter, and they have a part. They have no drawings. They have no CAD files. So they have asked us to take this metal part, 3D scan it, digitize it, turn it into a digital file so that it can actually be fabricated either out of metal or thermoplastic material with a 3D printer.
Wow, that's just amazing. That's
okay, and so that's with a helicopter company?
Yeah, they have a contract with a.
Yeah, you said that was a helicopter company?
Yeah, it's a part that they use for form, fit, and function. That they do heat shields.
Oh, really? Okay, very interesting. And Ron, also, I understand that some airlines like Emirates and things like that have been looking at doing cabin, kind of parts. Can you tell us anything about what they might be doing in a space like that?
Well, the FAA has approved certain types of thermoplastics to be used on aircraft, such as Boltaron and Ultim 9085, which can be used for air ducts, toilet seats, knobs, end caps, armrests, and things of that nature. So a lot of the airlines are using these technologies to keep the airlines flying rather than decrease the downtime, more or less, to repair these things. Rather than take out an entire row of seats because the table tray broke, you could just replace the little knob on the table tray that broke rather than take the whole row of seats out.
Yeah. Okay. All right. Hey, listen, Ron, one of the things that we like to do over the course of our broadcasts is we actually have people all over the world who are actually watching right now. And we want to give people an opportunity to be able to submit questions for us to be able to answer questions. And I know it's a little bit hard sometimes to do that kind of thing on the fly, but we got some questions coming in. I just wanted to throw them up there. One of our watchers out there wanted to know, what's the accuracy of a 3D scan? Can you address that in any way?
The accuracy depends on the type of scanner you're using. They have certain types of scanners called, there's one called the Faro arm, which is about $150,000, which can get down to very, very fine detail, down to maybe 5 thousandths or 2 thousandths of an inch. And then you have another type of a 3D scanner called a white light scanner. Steinbeckler is another company that makes these scanners. Some of the scanners are portable. Some of them are stationary, but you can get some very, very fine detail with these scanners. Also, there's a technology, we're working with one of our partners. They have a CT scanner, which can actually take a part and do non-destructive testing on it or inspection using a CT scanner. So they're actually seeing the entire part from inside and out, and they can actually digitize that, turn it into a digital file that can be actually 3D printed.
Wow. Wow.
Yeah, there's a really interesting, comment you made there. It's kind of funny. My brother, he sells lasers and scanners with Faro, and turns out
We
impressed over the
lost
years.
Mark again.
Yeah, just really been impressed over the years to see that technology and how really how far along it's really come, how advanced it is. Yeah. Hey, listen. Same person asked another question. They wanted to know how about shrinkage? If you're printing parts, how do you address with things like shrinkage, or what kind of tolerances do you have? What kind of challenges are with that?
So I'll take one example of a project we're working on right now. So we have 2 Stratasys 3D printers in our lab here in Atlanta. And when the part comes to us, the first thing we do with that part is we run it through a software analysis tool to make sure that part is watertight so that it can actually be 3D printed with the accuracy that it was meant to have. We also ask for 2-dimensional drawings with tolerances that we need to hold. So what happens in the printer, once you put the CAD file or what's called the STL file, when it's converted down to an STL file, an OBJ file or a step file into the computer, it slices it. And then there's an algorithm within that software that actually calculates how much shrinkage is going to be needed, or how much more material is going to be needed to add onto it to allow for the part, when it shrinks, to actually meet the tolerances required for that project.
Okay, so the shrinkage is already calculated in before you start to
yes, and that's actually done by the printer software itself.
Okay, and I assume it takes into account what sort of materials you're using and all that kind of stuff.
Right. You tell it whether you're using a different type, whether you're using ABS, PLA, HIPS, Ultim 9085, ASA. It calculates that in based on the algorithms for that type of material.
Ah, cool. So Ron, you mentioned you're doing all sorts of materials. You're doing Ultim and titanium and steel. What's the FAA's kind of view?
Well, that's that's really amazing.
Oh, so sorry. You had a question about the FAA?
Yeah, I mean, because I think you're doing both ground support and you're doing stuff that's flying. What's been your discussions with the regulators?
It had some.
So when we met with the FAA folks, they kind of coached us on where we should focus our efforts for aerospace and defense as far as making parts for aerospace. And they said to mostly concentrate on tooling, jigs, fixtures, and non-airworthiness parts. Any airworthiness parts will require PMA or MARPA approval, if you're an owner operator, then you can pretty much make a part if it falls within the guidelines of UL 94 FST approval. But mostly what we do is tooling, jigs, fixtures, end caps, armrests, toilet seats, anything that is not required to actually fly the aircraft. But we had to do that with FAA approved thermoplastics. I
got you. So, but I think it's refreshing that the FAA is actually, kind of stepping up and looking at this new technology, right? I mean, I think some of the stuff I've seen is that they are open to not just non-structural parts, but maybe moving to structural stuff as well.
Yeah, the FAA has actually set up a technology center in New Jersey, and I think they've bought a couple of 3D printers and they're actually doing some experiments over the last 2 years.
Ah, cool. That's awesome. Hey, Mark, are you with us?
Yeah. Hey. Well, yeah, I'm here. Yeah. So a question. So I understand that you've worked with a few airlines and you've solved a couple of business challenges or problems that they had. A second ago, we had one of those up on the screen here. And can you tell us about this part and what you were doing with this particular airline operator?
Yes. So we were contacted by Southwest Airlines about 5 years ago. And the problem that they had was when they service the plane for the food in the galley, they have to hold the door open with a bungee cord that's attached to these 2 brackets. And what was happening is most of the doors on an aircraft are made of a honeycomb material to keep the weight down. So the screws would vibrate out of the honeycomb leaving a hole that was not cosmetically suitable for what they wanted. And then there was no way to screw it back in. They'd had to take the entire door out of the plane, which required some additional downtime, so that plane couldn't take off or be put back into service. So we designed a part that goes through the door. So if there's a hole in the door, it's just covered up by that part. So
okay.
This part is now being flown on every Southwest airline aircraft. They, in the end, decided to make it out of a aluminum versus a thermoplastic material, but they were considering a high strength thermoplastic, but they eventually used aluminum instead.
Okay, interesting. Hey, I wanted to continue to take questions from our viewers, and this is really a good question. Is that I know that people are always concerned about burn certifications, and this particular person, wants to know about with thermoplastic materials flammability. How does that meet certification requirements and things like that?
So all the thermoplastics that are being used to make 3D printed parts have to go through some rigorous, standardizations and certifications with the FAA. So the FAA has already certified different types of Ultim materials, Ultim 9084, Ultim 1010. They've also implemented and are using plastics that have been in use for the last 25 years, like Boltaron. So most of these plastics have been FST and UL 94 approved, and any new plastics that are coming out have to be tested, by the FAA and be certified before they're being used inside the aircraft. Anything that's metal, of course, metal's not going to melt unless it's a very, very high temperature. So, but they're mostly concerned about thermoplastic materials and the toxicity involved with those materials as well.
Okay, well, very good. But I understand you also said earlier that you're doing fixtures and jigs and maybe ground support equipment. And so I understand there was another project that you did where you did some 3D printing of maybe some ground support equipment kind of tools.
Yes, this was a project that we were contracted to do with United Airlines out of California. They had a problem where they use the BAE loop tester to test current, so that, when an aircraft gets hit by lightning, there's a technology that funnels the current through the plane so it doesn't, cause an explosion. So what was happening was they would drop the handle of the loop tester current device, and they would break the plastic, but the induction coils inside of the device, of course, you could still use those, but the manufacturer of that product, you can't just buy the handle. You have to buy the entire cable, which was $20,000. So they were breaking 2 to 3 cables a month. So that was $60,000 a month that they were having to spend to buy another cable. And they said, well, we don't really need the cable. We need the plastic. So they hired us to reverse engineer the handle of the part that they use for testing, because they were actually repairing those those cables in-house as owner operator. So once we got down to maybe the 7th variation of the handle, which was working, they decided to contract us to actually make these on demand when they break them. So the cost savings, the return on investment there was, instead of paying $60,000 a month for 3 of these cables, we were only charging them about $3,000 a month. So instead of $60,000, they're now paying $9,000 a month to get 3 of these handles made.
Wow, that's a great story.
That's very significant. I mean,
and coincidentally, after you and I talked yesterday, guess who called me on the phone?
I don't know who.
United Airlines. they broke another handle, and they want to order some more handles.
Yeah, well, that's
cool.
Great. I mean, all of us today are looking for ways to be able to cut costs or to be able to optimize our business. And this is just an amazing approach or a way to do that. I mean, I really like the creativity in what you've done here. And what we're looking at, though, here right now, these are like 2 halves of a clamp, right? Is what
right.
That is?
There's actually 4 pieces to that assembly. And then they take it back to their shop, put the coils back in, and they actually go back into using that device to test current.
Okay, well, that's
Mark, that's a really great story, because in all these interviews, one of the things that's come out really strongly that is conserve cash. And in this time, this crisis that's going on, everyone we've talked to, key business parameter is to conserve cash. What a great example of how this can help you do that.
Right.
Yeah, exactly. Hey, Prasanth has asked us another question, and I don't know if you can answer, all these questions or not. You've done a great job so far, but I'm going to throw another one. asking us about special qualified material technology as ULTEM 9085 under FDM technology. I don't even know what he's talking about.
What was it? What was this question about Ultim 9085?
It says, are there any specific qualified materials available under SLS technology as ULTEM 9085 under FDM technology? Sounds like Greek to me.
Yes. So from an SLS perspective, he's talking about selective laser sintering is using a nylon powder material and polypropylene type materials to actually make a 3D printed part. Well, this is another type of 3D printing that's being used today. I think the FAA is looking to approve some of those materials because nylon is a very strong material. I think you have PA6 nylon and you have PA66 nylon, and those materials are already being used in aircraft, but now you can actually 3D print with that material. So that I think that material has been approved both for both PA6 and PA66 nylon to be used to make aircraft parts. And of course, these are non-airworthiness parts we're talking about.
Right, but you do meet flammability requirements with those parts.
Yes, those do meet flammability requirements, and there's specs on the internet on both. Yeah.
Yeah, that's the main thing for those types of parts. Yeah.
Yet one more example, we have here, which you've talked about, and let me just throw that one, up on the screen real quick. Here's another part that you got involved in doing a print on. Can you tell us a little bit about this situation as well?
Well, this is actually how we got into working with Delta Airlines flight simulator division. They have several flight simulators where people come from all over the world, and I think this was in an MD-80 aircraft. This is about 10 years ago. And the company that makes the lever in the cockpit to open the window went out of business. So they tried to go on the internet on eBay and buy some parts. And of course, they didn't work. So what we did is they gave us the broken part. We 3D scanned that part, fabricated it out of a thermoplastic material, did a form, fit, function check with the plastic material, and then actually 3D printed some of those parts out of metal. So now there's an online archive of that part. Whenever it breaks, we can 3D print that part on demand and have it to them within 3 to 5 business days.
Wow. And Mark, we've lost you again. Kind of stumbling through Mark's internet connection. So, Mark and I have talked a lot about digital transformation, and this is just a kind of another look about how to, really make digital transformation. Printing out parts, really awesome story.
Right, and then from a supply chain perspective, what we're seeing across the board from the major airlines is that the supply chains have been kind of cut. People can't get their parts fast enough to make the repairs to the aircraft. So they're trying to actually either set up their own 3D printing labs or hire companies like ours to actually 3D print part for them so that they can get these parts a lot faster.
Yeah, great story.
Yeah.
Hey, Ron, one of the things we always like to do here too is kind of from a leadership perspective, as a CEO of the company, what kind of advice can you give people around how to grow and thrive in the times that we're all struggling through here?
Well, there's actually a very good website that everybody can go to. It's called I think it's called MRO Aviation website.
Okay.
I think that's I think that's the name of it, MRO Aviation, and that website gives you a perspective on what everyone is doing all over the world from a supply chain perspective, how they're keeping aircraft in the air, how they're getting parts, how they're making parts. And you can also go on Google and just Google, if there's a part that you're looking for, you can, say Google that part, and someone out there may have already, fabricated that part in some type of CAD file that's open source that you can use to actually use as a tool, jig, or fixture to actually help, from an MRO perspective and, fix, the parts that you need to fix to get the aircraft back in the air. So there are numerous websites out there right now where you have some of these CAD files that can be used for that specific purpose for aerospace and defense.
Yeah, that's a good recommendation for. I mean, just using all the resources that are available to you to be able to navigate through a business issue. Hey, Mark, are you back with us?
Yep, I am. Yep.
Okay.
So, hey, I wanted to ask you another question, Ron. Is as the leader of a company, of an organization, I mean, is there other advice? So looking at resources that are out there, looking at things like websites or things like that. But as a leader of an organization, a CEO of an organization, are the things that you would tell people out there that in this industry that they should be doing in order to be able to survive these difficult economic times?
Most of the airlines that we're working with are looking at retooling from the perspective of setting up a facility within their facility or at remote locations located in different countries where they can actually have these 3D printing or additive manufacturing labs set up so that when a plane lands, let's say, as an example, we were talking to some folks in Saudi Arabia where they're setting up a facility there to actually 3D print parts on demand for different aerospace manufacturers and different aircraft companies that are flying right now to quickly get that part to them so that they don't have to wait. So when that plane lands, if they need a part, they can quickly, have that part ready and waiting for them by the time that they land. So a lot of the companies worldwide are actually setting these remote facilities up to actually cater to the aerospace industry.
Hey, one other thing I know about your business is you're actually diversified. You're not just in the aerospace industry, right?
No, we've done stuff for automotive, medical. We're actually working on a project right now for Home Depot where they need, I guess, when you go to the store and you break one of your hollow core doors at your house, you don't know whether it's a left or right door. You get to the store and you found out you bought the wrong door. So they want us to make these little doors that open in and open out so that you can remember, well, hey, your bedroom door opens in. So we're looking at printing some of those. We're also working with a company that's doing a project for GlaxoSmithKline for the inhalers where we're making parts that a robot can identify as a bad part before it goes into production. We've done some stuff for a company that's working with Mercedes-Benz and BMW to make some guide parts for some fixtures to actually use for putting the panels on the car for the aluminum, the siding, and things of that. So there's a lot of companies out there, a lot of people that need a lot of things, and it just like Marvel Studios called us one time to make some shields for Captain America: Winter Soldier. So it's pretty much all over the place. Or a company, they can't find a part, it's obsolete, and they need it. Colgate Palmolive, they hired us to make some gears for their assembly line because a gear broke and they couldn't get it. And we were able to fabricate that gear within 3 to 5 days and have that assembly line back up and running.
Oh, that's fantastic. So where I was kind of getting at with all that is that, we've been telling people that diversification is important so that, as certain industries are down and others are going up, whether you're in the aviation aerospace industry or whether you're out beyond that, I really like what you guys are doing. You're diversifying into a lot of industries to enable you to be able to level out some of the ups and downs in your business.
Correct.
Yeah, that's really good. That's amazing. So listen, we really appreciate all the ideas and the things that you brought here to the table today, Ron. If somebody wanted to be able to reach out to you and to continue this conversation, what's the best way for them to get a hold of you? Is it by email or by LinkedIn, or how should they get a hold of you?
We have a LinkedIn site set up. We also have our website where you can go to the contact page and enter your information, or you can just call us directly. We've set up a Zoom meeting. We do Zoom meetings almost every day now. We sometimes will go on site depending on the location. We do training. We also sell 3D printing technology as well, because some of the customers want us to actually sell them a printer so they can at least get started with a small desktop printer in their environment, and we can provide training and the technology for that as well.
That's really interesting. You guys really cover a broad spectrum. So if people out there want to get a hold of you, they can get a hold of you at ron@3dcadprinter.com. Is that right?
Right. Or they can call me directly on my cell phone. We're working 24/7 right now. People are calling us like 3 or 4 times a day now.
So you guys are really busy right now. Is that right? You're really busy right now?
Yes. In fact, I got 4 calls. Like I said, we just got called by United last night at 6:30. So,
all right. Well, hey, I appreciate you taking time out of your day to actually do this interview with us in the midst of, all your increase in business and everything. So thanks so much. And hey, everybody out there, if you want to get a hold of Larry and I, you can always get a hold of me at my email at Mark.
Right. And if anybody has any other questions, I'll be available in my lab today till 7 o'clock Eastern Standard Time.
Hey, that sounds great, Ron. Hey, Mark, we lost you again. Ron, for myself and Mark, just want to thank you for sharing how you succeeded through these troubled times and continue to grow. Kind of just an amazing story. So thanks a lot. And I think we're going to sign off today. And for all those that joined us, hey, thanks for joining in this morning.
Yeah, Larry, send me your contact information. I might want to talk to you, offline about a couple of things.
That'd be great. I'd be happy to do that, Ron. Hey,
Okay,
thanks again.
right. Okay,
Mark,
thanks.
we'll see you. All right, see you guys.
Thanks.
Bye.
All right.